All right, everyone, welcome to the Arnold School's first MPH student panel for undergraduate public health students. I'm so excited to be here with all of you, and I'm so excited to introduce our panel of Jessie, McKenzie, Isabella, and Asia. But before we do all of that, I just want to go over some ground rules to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So we're going to start and end on time. We're not going to be doing this thing where people go over, like we're going to be start and end on time. Please demonstrate respect for our speakers and other attendees. So just respect differences of opinions and make sure that you're muted throughout the duration of the presentation. Probably keep your video off unless you have a question towards the end and you want to ask that. Then unmute yourself and mute your video, and you can ask the question. You can feel free to drop questions throughout the chat as we kind of go, because based on some of you guys' submissions, I have some pre-planned questions, but we can definitely answer questions that y'all have as they come up. And so then just remember that this is being recorded, so don't say anything or do anything crazy that you wouldn't want somebody else to see in the future. So with that, I promise I'll do my best to do as little talking as possible, which, as you all know, for me is a sincere challenge. But let's have, I'll call each of our panelists to introduce themselves. And so when you do introduce yourself, why don't you just tell us your name, the department that you're in, and then maybe if you have an interest or anything like that, a specific public health interest, go for there. And if you're still figuring it out, that's okay too. So I'm going to go in the order that I see you all on my screen. So Jessie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh no. Hi, my name is Jessie Wheeler. I'm a master's in public health and my emphasis is in physical activity and community engagement. I initially came in as an exercise science master's student, but then switched to the MPH. It's a more comprehensive terminal degree for what I want to do. Right now I'm working in the Central Cancer Registry over at DHEC, and it is my favorite job in the world right now. And my interests lie, right now I'm developing a study for maternal care physical activity education. So getting primary care physicians who are in maternal care education materials that they can use in their practice about physical activity and the benefits that it can have for individuals who are pregnant. So that's kind of where my interests are right now. It will dramatically change about a week from now, I'm sure, but that's kind of just where we are at the moment. So I didn't know if that was everything that I need to say, but if not, let me know.
Yeah, that's spot on. Thank you, Jessie. So next up, I have McKenzie.
So hi, I'm McKenzie Isreal. I'm getting my MPH in HSPM, so Health Services Policy and Management. I actually came in thinking that I wanted to do HPB, which is the Health Promotion and Education or Behavioral Education. It's HPB, but I thought that I wanted to do that. So don't be afraid of redirection because I ended up going to HSPM and loving it. This is where I always needed to be, so don't be afraid of redirection. Right now, I work in the Sexual Health and Wellness Office. So if you come to the first floor of the Center for Health and Wellbeing, I'm down here in 101A. And then I'm doing my practicum at the State House as a policy intern. And then shameless plug, we have GYT on April 14th. So come get free STI testing in the Center for Health and Wellbeing. It's free. Don't have to run it through your insurance or anything. It's completely no cost. So yeah, that's my little spiel. Oh, my interests are maternal health. And then I think I'm starting to move more out of like that reproductive health to more like health equity. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And for our undergrad folks, you commonly hear the term in undergrad land, HPED. HPB is typically what we call it in the master's realm. And just for our panelists, to remind our panelists, all of the students, or at least most of the students who are in this session, are people who are taking undergraduate program planning, HPB 300. So, and all of you have either are taking or have taken program planning at the master's level. So have fun. Isabella, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, hi everyone. So I'm actually in HPB, so Health Promotion, Education and Behavior, second year master's student. And if anyone's interested, come on down to our department. We love to have new people. So my interest is in HIV prevention in youth populations. So I work currently at Ending the Epidemic South Carolina, which is under an internal DHEC grant. I also do COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy in the Latinx Latinx population in South Carolina. And I do want to mention that I'm 24 years old, so I went right into this after my undergrad, and I didn't have it together at all last year in my first year, and now I'm like this put together person. So I just want to say that it's possible. I want to start it out there. But yes, I'm excited for all these questions and to see all of your faces and whatnot. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Isabella. And last but certainly not least, Asia, why don't you take the floor?
Hi, y'all. So my name is Asia. I'm a second year master's student in the epidemiology and biostatistics department, specifically epidemiology for me. My interests include like food safety and acute disease epidemiology. I currently have a graduate assistantship working with DHEC in the Division of Acute Disease Epidemiology, and I enjoy it so much. And also, I know it's like not related at all, I'm doing my practice experience with injury prevention, and I'm enjoying that too. So don't think, you have to stick with one thing. It's okay to try out different things to see where you best fit. So.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Asia. And I just want to tell all of the participants that these 4 panelist members, don't tell the other students, even though this is being recorded, are some of my favorite master's students. And I honestly can't think of anyone better to share their experiences and to keep it real with you as you think about potentially pursuing graduate school and what that might look like specifically at the Arnold School. So I'm really excited about today. Also, another very important note, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. I do have a green hat on and I have green pants on, but I won't stand up and show you all that. So I want to make sure we say happy St. Patrick's Day. So feel free to put any questions you have in the chat as students as they're coming up. But to start off, let's just take a big view level and how does a master's program, how's that experience in a master's program different than the undergrad experience, whether it's workload, social life, all those kind of fun things?
I'll start. So the master's program is obviously a lot more involved than the undergraduate program. So your coursework is a lot more focused on the subject that you're actually interested in. So, in undergrad, you might not be necessarily interested in doing biostatistics or learning how to write all these nice papers. When you get to your program, it's more focused on like, okay, I want to do program planning or I want to learn how to do health promotion. So it's more focused in that way. Social life wise, you definitely have to get your time management together. I think everyone tells you that, but they don't really tell you that. And then also we came in the pandemic cohort. So I'm part of the 2020 group that started off online and it's kind of finishing it off online. So social life wise, yeah, we're built different. But social life wise, definitely will say it's more important to make peers academically now because these academic peers will become your professional peers. So I find myself now even looking at, like I said, Jim was at the State House. So we're talking about things that he's working with, the lobbyists he's working with, that I'm working with my senator on. So being able to have like that collaboration and learning to network, just get that balance together, be prepared going in mentally that it's going to be a different lifestyle. You might not have as much social time as you think that you're going to have, but it's going to be fun, the social time that you do have, and definitely get to know your cohort, get to know your peers.
Just to echo that, it's a lot smaller. Specifically, my cohort in my department, there's 15 of us, 12 of us. It's quite tiny. So it's a more intimate experience, which I happen to love. I did undergrad here at USC as well, in the Arnold School of Public Health. And I feel like not that you're not heard in undergrad, you definitely are, but it's harder to get involved. Whereas in your graduate program, like you have some serious talks and you really get to know your professors. You can have a special and unique experience to get very involved. But yes, as McKenzie said, last year when we were online, I had no social life, but this year I've been prioritizing my mental health because that is important in public health. We advocate for good and better mental health. So we have to choose ourselves sometimes, and the work will get done because it has to.
And I will advocate for our faculty by saying that anytime I've found myself overwhelmed, it's because I'm doing too much in the wrong direction. Our faculty are incredible. They want you to take care of yourself. And like coming from an exercise science background, which is a lot more clinical, into the public health field, it was kind of a shell shock because everybody was so nice. But yeah, I can't emphasize that more. The experience that I had, which I haven't heard like a ton of people talk about, but it does seem to be kind of a trend, is that it builds your confidence by tearing you down initially, just because you kind of have to go through that shell shock initiation phase. That, you know, first semester, second semester is tough. It may not even, I've heard some people, you know, talk about it wasn't academically tough, but mentally it was exhausting. Just depending on which program you're in. But you definitely, I can't emphasize that enough, you have to get your time management skills down. If you manage your time well, it's not like excruciating. It's not terrible. It's really fun. You have a good, like, I love the program. I like don't want to be doing anything else right now. But you can see when somebody's not managing their time well. And I've definitely caught myself not managing my time well, and it bites you in the butt really hard.
Yeah, I agree. Time management is very important. My cohort is small as well with epidemiology. And one thing that I love is like we're all in this together. Like everyone is rooting for each other. If there's something, one person may not understand that someone does, like we can come together because we want everyone to succeed. We want everyone to get this degree. It's like we're in this for the long haul together. So
Thank you all so much for sharing all that. I think that's all really great insights. So what exactly does the average day of an MPH student look like?
I feel like that is so different for everyone. Mine is full of meetings, but that's just because I'm super over involved. But it starts out with like, you really have to find your Zen time in the morning because you start getting emails, to be candid, at around 5 a.m. So if your email is on your phone, it could be really stressful to disconnect. But yeah, I have an office in Discovery 1, so I'm there pretty much most days, and I'm just going from meeting to meeting, whether it's student engagement committee from our department or my research that I do, and then classes. So it's like typical to undergrad, but I would definitely say it's more packed just because with GA ships and like other things that we're involved in, it's full of that. And then I just had my comprehensive exam, so my days were pretty full of extra work as well.
yeah, I agree. So I may be a psycho, but I actually have 2 graduate assistantships, and I'm a part of DSAC, and I'm doing my practice experience, and I have my ILE. So if I showed you my calendar, it's just like color blocks. It's very hectic, but I also make sure to block out, some time for me. It's not so your mental health is once again very important. So it starts with organizing for me. Just syllabi, so important. Please don't just toss those aside. Those dates for assignments and exams, all of that, please pay attention. Get you a planner or something and write those dates down. It helped me, and then I could block out, okay, this time I'm going to work on this assignment and so forth. I think that's what helped my success.
My day, so I think it depends on where you are in your like academic progression too. So I think your first year, some of our classes were like during the day. So classes like 3 hours long, graduate classes are, but you only have them once a week. So we might have one on like a Wednesday afternoon, and then another one on Thursday night. And then you might have a virtual or like, however else your hours work. So you'll fit your GA in around that. So your first year, you'll have 20 hours of a GA. And then if you have extra work hours, then like you'll fit that in at kind of like your own convenience. But you'll do your 20 hours a week, and then you'll have your regular class time. Sometimes your classes, you'll have a night class that goes 6 to 9. And I know that sounds really dramatic right now. And it is like, it's not my favorite thing in the world to have to go to my 6 to 9 o'clock. But when I get there, we do have breaks sometimes. Our teachers at least have allowed us to have a 10-minute break every now and then, and we can have a snack, or like we'll go on break and we can actually go eat dinner, or like just kind of sit down and just take a breather, because those long stints of information can be a little overwhelming, or you get lost and you lose focus because it is 8:30 at night and I want to go home. But it's really not as bad as it seems. Like she said, once you get your planner in and you look at those dates, you get them color coded, you block them off, you pick and choose when you need your personal time, you can get it done. It's very feasible. But yeah, you'll work in between your class schedule. And then as you move on, like you'll start adding things. So I think a lot of us have like more than one GA or like a GA and a practicum, and then like outside things outside of academia. So now for us, I think a lot of our classes are more like virtual classes or working classes. So our practicum class, we submit a journal every week. Our capstone, we have one hour class on a Wednesday evening from like 6 to 7, which isn't bad at all. And then the other one, what's my other one? Oh, the other one is the Transforming Healthcare. And that's like we meet once a month, and then we have some virtual assignments. And then outside of that, during the actual 9 to 5, you're working. So it depends on your progression. For the most part, you'll be working and doing school at the same time. But later on, then you'll start to be doing just that 9 to 5 with a little bit outside.
So I do want to clear up, please, our panelists, if anybody wants to add that, that's fine. But before we go further with that, the word GA has come up a couple of different times, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands what exactly that means in terms like practicum and practicum experience. So all of those things are really hands-on experiences that are an integral part of the graduate student experience, specifically for a Master of Public Health students. So a graduate assistantship, or commonly referred to as GA, is essentially you work 20 hours a week and you get paid a stipend, and you get a lot of goodies with that type of thing, like in-state tuition and all these kinds of things, but you're gaining practical experience while doing your classes. And most of our students have GAs unless they work full-time. And so I just want y'all, the undergrad students, to know that that is something that is a big to-do in grad school, and many of our students have already mentioned that a lot. Another clarification point is, y'all are familiar with the term internship, and so in the master's world we call that like the practicum, or the practice experience, or an applied practice experience. But the short of it is, you're applying all these great skills that you're learning in the classroom and going out into the real world and making all that stuff happen. And so when our panelists are referring to those things and what they're spending their time doing, that's a lot of it, is actually practically using the knowledge that they're gaining in the classroom. So just want to make sure everyone is on the same page with that. So now that I've got my voice heard again, does anybody have anything else to add to the average day of an MPH student?
Yeah, I know everyone said this, but I can't emphasize it enough. You have to take time for you in whatever way that looks like. I am not artistic. I don't consider myself to be artistic. I found during the pandemic that learning how to kind of mentally detach is really important. So I took email off my phone and I started water painting, just because why not? So that's my morning activity. And I've definitely noticed that if that doesn't happen, that the rest of the day reflects that I didn't take time to just kind of sit and be mindless before the 11-hour rampage starts. And especially with, I don't remember who said it. I think Belly, you said it. Kind of getting out of academia is also really important. We are in an academic environment. But it's good to apply your passion. Like, what are you passionate about? Why are you getting this degree? You can start applying that before you graduate. You can get involved in organizations that do work in public health, physical activity, community engagement, community education. There's tons of them. I know, and Zach is a great resource for that. So he got me plugged into a group called The Friendship. We meet once a month. It's super fun. Get to work with all my old people, and I say that with all love. But just get involved in some kind of community organization that resonates with you and what you want to do.
So I think that ties really nicely into our next question. So I appreciate the alley-oop, and I'll slam it home for you guys. Is it necessary to have work or internship experience before applying into a master's public health program?
Okay, so I feel maybe not necessarily a formal internship, but I feel like you should be having some kind of experiences while you're an undergrad applying. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I went and worked for this organization. But like it does look better on your application and going in that way you have some experience knowing like what am I actually getting myself into? Because for me, at least, it seemed like what I thought public health was in undergrad is way different than how I see it now coming in. So I've gotten to see like a different side of it. And I'm glad that I had some of those experiences before, because also that networking that I was doing, I can still use that networking now. And I'm reaching out to them and they're helping me still, helping me get through helping me get through grad school and being able to say, well, you remember that assignment you did in undergrad, or when we did this with us, you already have that. So I won't say that I'm not going to tell you that you won't get in, but I do think that it would help your understanding as you go through the program and you start picking up some of these knowledge, like how could you apply it? Or how have you applied it already?
I feel like I have kind of a different angle of this. I feel like you don't need it necessarily for your graduate program, but it's good for you. Like, I feel like there's these societal pressures where it's like, you should be having an internship your junior into your senior year of college. Like, I feel like that's such a pressure. And so I succumbed to it and I did it. And I worked in an HIV clinic. But the silver lining of that is I really found my passion. And then I brought that into my master's program. So do it for you and never feel like, I don't know, like you have to have an internship or all these accolades. Like you yourself will sell yourself to any program. And like coming out of the Arnold School as an undergrad, like you're just one step up it's such a good undergrad program. Like we don't even realize, and even that our school offers an undergraduate degree in public health is amazing. So I wouldn't say you need it for your graduate program, but maybe do it because public health is so broad. So just to find your niche a little bit more, but that continues. Like even when considering a PhD, I mean, I don't even think I've found my place yet. So I think it's important to constantly have internships and volunteership in things that you're interested in. For example, I volunteer at Transitions, which is a homeless shelter, on my own time, just because it's something that I'm interested in. And public health really makes you an advocate as a whole. And you'll realize that if you do go into a master's or another career path, like you really you continue to be and do volunteerism because it's like just kind of what comes with public health.
Yeah, my opinion is like a blend of both Isabella and McKenzie's. So for one, the best way to see is like to jump out in the field just to get a feel of, is this something that you want to do? It's one thing for me, I'm like a hands-on learner, so it's one thing to read about something or hear someone else talk about something, but I think the best way to figure that out is to put yourself like in the field, in the experience. And public health is so broad, so you may not like this part of public health, but maybe like may not like planning, but you may like policy or something like that. So I just think it's best just to get out there, but not required.
Yeah, I've sat in on some of those acceptance meetings where they go over graduate applications, and the one word that keeps coming up is initiative. Like, did this student take the initiative to get in contact with an organization? It's not so much looking for that formal experience, but just, did you try to get your foot in the door? Did you just go by to find an associate professor on campus who does research and just go to them and be like, hey, I see this project that you're working on. Is there any way I can volunteer? Just some time is a great way to get your foot in the door.
That's so, oh God.
It's just a really good way to get your foot in the door, and name recognition goes a long way. So if you like networking, congratulations, you picked the right field. Get to know as many people as possible, and as long as they also know your name and your face, that can get you into a lot of doors.
I'm so glad that everybody is bringing up the importance of experience, because that is my research interest and that's what I do for my job. So I put a nice little quote that seemed to fit well with the message that everybody was saying in the chat here. And I don't know if that will show up in the recording, so I'll just read it for those briefly in case it doesn't show up there. But experiences grow out of other experiences, and experiences lead to further experiences. Wherever one positions oneself in that continuum, that imagine now, some imagine past, or some imagine future, each point has a past experiential base and leads to an experiential future. And so I think that speaks to what everyone was mentioning here, of that you need to try new things to see what else is out there. And I also just wanted to point out that the Master of Public Health degree, it is an applied degree. So it is not, although you do some ivory tower reading, the job is all about getting out there in the field and making a difference. It's about actually doing things. So if that's something that appeals to you, you might want to further inquire about an MPH. So, okay, I'll be quiet now. Any other last notes on that before I go to some more next questions? And I know Asia has to pop off soon. So, well, not pop off, you have to prior engagement. So feel free to go whenever you need to. But if I'll do a 3 count, and if there's no other things, I'll go to our next question. Sweet. So what other programs did you apply to, if any at all, and why did the University of South Carolina's Master of Public Health program stand out to you?
I'll answer this really quickly. So I also applied to East Tennessee State University. So it was between these two. USC, what did it for me is the Prospective Students Day. So I came and I listened to Dr. Albert talk and a couple of professors, and there was also a panel. And I just liked how I felt like everyone genuinely cared about like the students. I feel like with USC, you know, everyone, like even professors, when I went, you know, spoke to them, and they had no idea who I was, but they really took the time to listen to me, my interests, explain what they did. It was just like they wanted to build that relationship, and I'm so glad I chose USC because they do. Like all professors, even professors that I haven't even had for a class, if I reached out to them for something, they were so willing to help me, and they really wanted me to succeed. So that's why I chose USC.
I made a very controversial decision. I only applied to USC. For me, it was kind of, I feel like I got into the master's program by accident. Just because I was like, I'm gonna apply this one time, I'm gonna see if I get in, and if not, I'm just gonna go work in cardiac rehab and I'll figure life out later. But my research advisor in my undergrad was from USC, and the department chair was from USC, and I came here my junior year. I did my undergrad at a much smaller university down in Greenwood. But whenever I came here in person and I saw the way that the faculty interacted with just somebody from outside the department who may or may not apply, that was really kind of it for me. They were extremely helpful. I remember I got to work for Dr. Weaver before I applied, which really helped out my decision making in whether or not I wanted to. So I got to work with the department before I became a part of it. And that really helped me with my decision. But it was absolutely unparalleled in the level of support that the faculty and departments give here.
I agree. And I think this is also the only place that I applied, but it really all did start in HPB 300. I had Dr. Edita Guiamares, and I think she might be on here, but she is the reason that I am here. She's believed in me, and we've had a really great relationship since I was in undergrad, and she always like thinks of me for things, and she really is the reason, because when I felt like I was such a small fish in a big pond, she always went out of her way, like you said, faculty that go out of their way to believe in you. It makes you believe in yourself, and it's continued through. And I work directly under her in my graduate program. So that's why I decided to stay. It was you, Dr. G. So yeah.
I chose to stay. Well, okay, so I applied to USC the first time to HPB and I didn't get in. So I was supposed to be right there with Bella, but I didn't get in, which is why I had to have like the redirection to HSPM. And it ended up being really great, which is why I tell you, don't be afraid of redirection. Like your interests are gonna change. Don't feel like, oh, I've settled on this one thing and I've put so much effort into it to where I have to stay, because it's not. And then I also applied to UNC Gillings. I didn't get in there, but I'm also kind of glad because I've been talking to some people that do go to school there, and the program is really great, but they're just not necessarily getting out of it what they were expecting. So I feel like I definitely got the best end of the deal. And then when I did get into HPB, I applied to UGA, but I had support from faculty here. So everyone's kind of been talking about faculty in the Arnold School and how supportive they are about things that we're doing on campus or like opportunities outside of campus. And that's something really important is you want somebody or a mentor behind you that's not going to want to just keep you in their mix, keep you to themselves, that's going to put you out there and say, well, I heard of this other thing and I think you'd be really great. So she actually connected me to one of the professors at UGA, and I talked to her, and that's who, pretty much told me like, you're in, just fill out your paperwork. And then I, was able to take that acceptance and kind of leverage it. But also in that process, when you're looking at programs, look at who the faculty is. Like, are there research interests, things that align with you? Are you interested? Because if you have a very specific interest that you're like, I really want to get into this, and I want to try it out, I want to learn from somebody that's actually in the field working on it, and we don't have it here at the Arnold School, you might have somebody that has a connection somewhere else that is doing what you're interested in. So don't be afraid of like looking outside of USC or looking a little bit deeper just than, oh, well, it looks, has some accolades. It's nationally this, nationally that. It's a great program. It's a great program, but is it a good fit for you? So that's why I chose to stay.
I will say that when I do talk to prospective students or people ask me about the program, that is the number one thing that I always go back to, that I can't speak to other schools because I haven't been in other schools, but I know that a common salient point that students who go through the program walk away feeling, and y'all have mentioned this already, is that the faculty really deeply care, and they care about your success academically, but they also care about your success and happiness as a human being and a person. And for those of my students, hopefully that comes off that I feel the same way about y'all. And for others that aren't in my class, hopefully you've made some of those connections with some public health faculty. But to me, that is the biggest differentiating point from other programs is the people. And that makes a big difference. So I just thought I would put that point out there. So many of our folks who are attending this panel today or attending today or participating today, they're juniors and seniors. And so that whole find a job / apply to graduate school thing is coming up. And y'all remember how fun that is, because some of you are getting ready to do the job thing again, or even school again. So one of the questions we had submitted was, what kind of things should you discuss in a personal statement, especially when applying to MPH programs?
Just because we are a research one institution, I remember writing a good bit about my research interests and kind of even like the direction of those. But yeah, just again, I think that Jessie kind of touched on this, like initiative and passion. Like if you show passion for public health at all, or people in general, I think that's really important in any personal statement, but specifically like this is a very like humanitarian sort of field. So I just remember writing a lot about like from my heart, just about like what public health means to me and what helping underserved communities kind of means to me. That's, I would say, important. I don't know, Jessie, McKenzie might have a different different things to say.
Yes. So with McKenzie, go. You're good.
I was going to follow up on what Bella said, like writing about your experiences. And again, how do they relate to what we're doing in this school? Why are you interested? Why are you passionate? Because you want to be able to express to them like how much I really think I would benefit from this program, because it's not necessarily about what you're going to bring to them. It's how are you going to benefit from being in our program? Because ultimately, like if they read, that and see that this might not be the best place for you and that you've applied somewhere else that you told them, might be like, oh, take that other one. So definitely express, what your interests are, how your experiences fit and what you've done, be able to sell yourself. And then I think like personal touches always make it fun, make it memorable. Like Bella said, it's very humanitarian. The people here, they are real people that read it. They are nice. They care about you. So giving them little tidbits about you too can make you stand out. And they might remember you when you walk in and it's like, oh, I remember your statement. You were said this, this, and this, and have a conversation from there.
It's great. Networking is everything. Yeah, so fun fact, I got told during my interview, you wouldn't have gotten in based on your personal statement, which was great feedback because I got told why. and it was good. I did not represent myself well on paper whenever I've submitted my personal. I didn't like whenever they were asking in the interview, like, what are some of the passions that you have? Like, why are you here at this program? I gave, answers from the heart, and they were like, that's what we want to hear. We have your personal statement here. We would have loved to have seen that. So be you in your personal statement. It's okay to go online and look up like tips on like certain formats that work well with personal statements. I would recommend reaching out to our alumni association. They can give you contacts of individuals who have submitted personal statements. But yes, please be you. They're not looking for, one of the good things about the Arnold School of Public Health is that they're not looking for the best master's student. They're looking for the best public health practitioners. So as long as you advocate for very clearly who you are and why this program will benefit you specifically, you don't have to have like super detailed research interest. I'm in my second year. If I ever had to do a PhD, I wouldn't be able to. I have no idea what I want to do in terms of like research, whatever. But yes, just be super authentic as much as you can. It's way more memorable whenever somebody conveys a very particular passion they have and why this program will help them achieve that.
Yeah, the personal statement, it's a big to do, and it is a very personal thing. And everybody mentioned pulling on your lived experiences. And I think if you can convey yourself and spend some time doing that and show what you've done and why it matters, I think that's a great advice moving forward with all of that. So for our folks, have any of our panel members, did any of you work for a couple years or a year or so before applying to your master's program? And Jessie, you did that, did you not?
Yes, I was a associate program director at a summer camp and conference center for about a year and a half before applying. I left my exercise science undergrad and realized that there's nothing you can do with it. So I was like, I'm going to go back to this camp I used to work at. And they needed an associate director. So I did summer programming for them. And it was an incredible learning experience. Just being shoved right into like a managerial position where I had no experience in it. But yeah, I think it overall benefited me in my personal master's experience greatly. I don't think that the me who graduated with my undergrad would have been ready for this kind of experience, but having that work behind me definitely helped.
Yeah, and the reason that I asked that, oh, sorry, McKenzie.
I was gonna say, I don't know if it necessarily counts, but again, faculty and staff, if they care about you, if they like you, and if they see that, like, you take that initiative, they'll always add you to projects. So I graduated December 19, and then we got to 2020, and things happened, the world shut down, the job hunt changed completely, but I did have a faculty member at the Arnold School that reached back out to me about a project they were doing, and I was able to get some outside experience that way. So I've actually been able to do like an evaluation and do some public health practice, not necessarily in a like you're hired, you have a job, but there are, even if you can't necessarily find your dream job or something to do right out, there are projects that are out there for you to jump on and try out and network with. So don't get discouraged. I think it has to look just one specific way.
So the idea of expanding social connections and getting to know faculty has come up quite a few times throughout our panel. So what is your guys' advice? How do you do something like that?
Well,
Go Bella.
All right, okay. So I did it in HPB 300. And I'm really such an outgoing person, but for some reason, when I was an undergrad, I was like, oh, I'm going to be like shy for no reason. Like it was very off and strange. But I just, like I said, HPB 300 was so interesting to me. So I directly talked to Dr. G and was like, listen, like I would definitely like to help sometime in the future, but I feel like I really like untraditional paths. And so I met 2 undergraduate students at like a tailgate, and they both work under me right now. So I feel like you just have to, I don't know, you're always in a networking situation, and just even emailing or reaching out or setting up a time, which is hard because some faculty, yes, won't answer. But even having an in, like I love to be a gateway between people. So if anyone on this call, like you can share my information, and even I can get you in contact with people that you might be interested in researching with. Not that they won't reach out, like answer, but sometimes it's easier to go through graduate students, especially if it's in my department, because I know a lot of my professors. But sorry, I'm like babbling, but basically reaching out, asking to get lunch, like instead of just emailing back and forth, like so you guys have a rapport and get to know each other. Or if if there's a graduate student that's doing research, or a PhD student, like even those avenues are easy to kind of talk and reach out and talk about research or future careers or pathways. Just showing interest, I think, in professors was really beneficial for me, because then again, Dr. G remembered me, and then I got into our department, and it was like, it's been beautiful ever since.
I'd say the same thing, like going to talk to your professors. My mentor is, so Bella has her HPB mentor, and that's kind of been like her professor that she's been able to work with and kind of grow with. So you do kind of like find a mentor too. Eventually you'll kind of, everyone finds their person. So my person ended up being Dr. Ingram. And so for me, I started off like maybe my sophomore year thinking I was halfway interested in research, because you hear everyone talk about, oh, I presented at Discover USC, or I did this research, and I was like, well, might as well do something. Like it just seemed like everyone else was doing. Like Bella said, sometimes you get kind of like pressured. This seems like what you're supposed to do. But anyway, found Dr. Ingram. I was really interested in her topic, but like I could never make contact with her. So I would send emails to try to get coffee or try to get in contact with someone else that knew her. And that's going to happen sometimes. Like some people, it's not that they are avoiding you or ignoring you. Sometimes they genuinely just don't see it, or they just don't have time to do it because, things happen. But I ended up in her class, and I was like, hey, I've been your student all semester, but I've also like been research stalking you for a while. And so me taking an interest in her and being able to say like, I know what you're doing and I've been watching it, I'm interested. That was a good way to network. And then like just going up to your teachers in general, they might not have an interest that you're interested in, but they might be able to connect you too. Like you don't have to necessarily know a grad student, but your teacher knows how you perform in class. They have a personal relationship with you to be able to say to their other professor peer, I have this student that's really interested and she's really awesome. She's always active in class. And then that could be your in. So go through multiple avenues, look up people, see what they're into, because then that's another way to have conversation and build rapport. They love that. People love to talk about themselves. So try that out.
Yeah, and especially going for a walk and grabbing coffee can take you anywhere. It's sometimes it can be challenging because you want to edit yourself to the best researcher that you can be, or the best graduate assistant you can be, or you have this idea in your head, but all most people are looking for is just, are you personable? Do you get along? I've seen plenty of brilliant researcher, master students in other departments who don't get the GA position that they wanted because they're a brilliant researcher, but they didn't really bring themselves to the interview, which I know sounds super general, and it is really general, and I wish I could give you more details, but just be personable, be interested in the person that you want to work with. Even if you don't really know what you want to do, be upfront about that. Be like, hey, I don't really know what I want to do, but your work seems really interesting. Is there any way that we can get together and talk about what you do? Or can I volunteer on a project you have right now, even if it's just making a graphic for you? That's an easy way to get your name down in their contact list, which is kind of 90% of the battle. It's just making sure they know who you are and what you can do.
You can always make a flyer for people with Canva. They have so many projects going on. That was a good one to point out. That's stuff they ask you to do. So if you know how to make a flyer on Canva, ask somebody. I'm sure they need one.
Oh my God, this is such great insight. I hope everybody is getting a lot out of this. We know that people like to talk about themselves, and faculty really like to talk about themselves. So if you can connect on the stuff that they do, because their work consumes a lot of their life, that is definitely a good way to get involved in all of that. And even if they're not responsive at first, finding that third party to help connect you, I think that's really, really good insights, and just volunteering and being involved. like my quote that I shared earlier, that opens up those new potentials for the future experiential self. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I want to pause for a moment and see if we have any questions that have come up from our listeners. And so feel free to put those in the chat, or you can raise your hand and then I'll unmute you and you can talk and that kind of thing. So want to give a space for that if any questions have come up. So I'll give like a 20-second count or something like that. Liv asked a great question, which she'll probably have an answer she may not have anticipated, but Liv wants to know what the thesis process was like. Thank you, Liv.
Thesis for undergrad or graduate? Because I didn't have a thesis for either. I did a capstone. And so your capstone is so for graduate, our capstone is writing a grant. So kind of like program planning, thinking of what we want to use this money for, going through all the steps. And then for undergrad, I was working on a research project in undergrad, and what did I do with it? Did we present it? Did we like come up with some kind of portfolio? I can't really remember for undergrad, but we didn't necessarily do a thesis. So I'm not sure if that depends on the department you're in. I'm not sure if anyone else has any other experience, but I didn't have one and I came out of the Arnold School for undergrad.
Yeah, it's not really a thesis, but we keep mentioning the practice experience or practicum, which kind of closes out your degree. I have a different experience. It's not a thesis, but I did have a comprehensive exam, which synthesized my entire program. So I got it for a month, and it basically was like all my core HPB courses. It's different for every department. Like McKenzie said, they're writing a grant. We're not. We did our comprehensive, and then at the end of our practice experience, we present what we did and our deliverables. So that's like 2 deliverables, which is like 2 work products that we put out. And then we have to hit on a bunch of like points from our program. But yeah, so I'm doing mine. I'm doing qualitative research. I'm doing HIV stigma in South Carolina. So it's not really a thesis. Like we're not a PhD thesis or a master's, but it's similar. You still have to do things to get that degree.
So for my undergrad, it was very clinically based in exercise science. And so we did do a thesis for that. I know the Master's of Science in Exercise Science at USC also has a thesis that you will complete, or you can do a project. So they have 2 options for you there. For the MPH, even in the physical activity program that I'm in, there is no thesis. So I'm sorry if you were really wanting to do one. But oftentimes, sort of, this is just my perspective, a thesis is usually presented in degrees that usually lead into PhD fields. So a thesis is really going to be, think of a thesis like the end of your master's personal statement. It's kind of we need to know that you can do research because you're probably looking at going to go do a PhD. Not all the time, but generally. And since the MPH and HISBOM are so practical related that they're terminal degrees, so oftentimes you can go get a PhD after, but it in no way hinders you in the job market to just stick with your MPH.
Yeah, that was a really cool way to put the idea of a thesis. And yeah, so everyone stated it, the MPH is a really practical degree. And so while HPEB actually does have a thesis option, it is very rare that folks use that option. And so typically you do your practicum, practice experience, go work with an outside organization, expand your social capital, and enter the workforce that way. So we've got a question from Kalia. Kalia, thank you for putting a question in. She asks, how would you recommend prospective students with interest across multiple areas find a middle ground?
I got you. I came in and I really thought I knew what I wanted to do, and I absolutely did not like doing what I was doing. And so then I switched to the MPH. I still don't have like a specific I really want to do that. I want to work in this field of public health. But that's the beauty of public health, is that if you don't really know what you want to do, but you know that you enjoy working with people and you enjoy working with health systems and you enjoy anything that you can imagine in public health, it's an option for you. So this is the field for individuals who want to make a difference, but don't know exactly what you want to do right now. My life plans change every Monday morning at 8 a.m. around about. Usually I try to hit that mark. And so it's an extremely flexible field. So you don't have to find a middle ground. That's the beauty of it. It's great. It's beautiful.
And I think like once you're in a department that you choose, which might be hard if you don't really know what direction you want to take, but really taking like different electives. I took a paleopathology elective, which was the disease of like skeletons. It was so disease patterns and skeletons. It was so interesting. Nothing that I'm actually interested in, but even like creating independent studies is huge in graduate school. Like because we do have to take electives, and I think all the departments. So yeah, just creating like your own way, or finding, I mean, like I said, I do COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy research, but my real like interest is in HIV. So you definitely can dabble and dip your feet in a bunch of different things. And like public health, again, so broad, even with an MPH. So just keep like reaching for the stars and dip your feet wherever you want to.
I'll say if you are, because you can go look at multiple things. Don't feel pigeonholed like you have to take everything that you're interested in and find one solid middle ground. That's not the case. But if you are interested in multiple things, so like I was going to do this for my practicum or my grant if I could have figured out how to make it work. But so I'm interested in like social media and marketing and all of that, but I'm also interested in public health. So kind of like for me, writing out keywords or things that relate to that topic for each topic, and then looking, okay, where is there a relationship between here? So for Twitter and public health, I was thinking, okay, we use Twitter a lot, but we've also seen a lot of misinformation from COVID-19. So how are we using like social media outlets to monitor misinformation or to like take it down? Who's looking at it? They have roles now, even in these social media companies where they have like health equity positions. So looking at these things and saying, okay, well, how can I find a way to put this piece into this? How does it connect? Like finding, creative ways. Sometimes it's not going to be a lot of literature out there. So if you don't want to have to like, get super nitty gritty and like pretty much have to break new ground, then maybe pick the research interest that has the most information out there, because you don't want to like stress yourself out, or you don't want to be the pioneer right now. Just learn. But yeah, just try to write different ideas out and see how you can find a connection between them. And then you'll come up with something creative that you really like and are passionate about studying.
So we've got a couple of questions here, but we really only have time for maybe one more, and then we have a closing statement from our folks. So Dominic asked, what were the ways that you got your field hours in undergrad for internship? So that may be, you can probably just say that like in a sentence, and maybe I'll try and fit in Casey's question.
I didn't have field hours.
It was COVID.
Yeah, COVID cohort coming in strong with no hours.
Sorry, Dominic, I don't think that helped. So Casey asked, for those of you in your second year, what are you planning on doing next?
That's a great question. The job hunt is interesting. Don't be scared of it. Obviously, I'm not saying this to like stress you out or anything, but get ahead of it. Look out there, see what you're interested in, look at what the companies are, what they're doing, know a little bit about them. Check out big interviews. So if you get a call, you're ready for that interview. Start looking at your online brand. So a lot of people, like a lot of my peers, we have personal website pages where we kind of market ourselves on LinkedIn, but then also on another platform. So yeah, get ahead of it. Start looking at it now if you're interested. But right now, I'm still in the job hunt process. Hopefully after this, I'll go do either some kind of program management, policy analysis, consulting. There's so many options.
I'm looking at a bunch of project management, like grant jobs for HIV right now. I don't, basically like grant jobs they could be like a little less time. So maybe 2 years. And then I think that I'm going to go back and probably get a PhD at some point, but I just want to which also I do want to mention, it really, when you get your master's, like there's a lot of pressure to get a PhD. It's like just academia. It's the world where we live in. Even if it is a practical medical degree. I do feel, but it's something that I want, but I'm also just like, I want to find more like of a niche, and sustainability is super important to me. So I don't want to just like hop into my PhD, because there's a lot of burnout too. Like, take a break. This is my 6th year of college, and I'm like, I need a little bit of a break. So workforce it is, and make money. Yes, yes.
Yeah, don't be do something that you enjoy, but don't be afraid to bring up salary. I mean, you need to be able to take care of yourself too, and that's important. I will say I had originally planned on working in academia, and while that is not completely off the table, I have now well, no, actually it might be, but I have completely done a 180. And I am very much an advocate for working for like state agencies, and there's so much public health industry out there. There's consultant groups, which the job positions for them aren't always going to be public health related. There's going to be finance jobs, there's going to be data analyst jobs. But I will be very upfront. The money is in jobs that typically involve summarizing information for people. For some reason, I don't know. But like, if you see like public health analyst, that just means you're going to be working with public health data and putting it into a PowerPoint to make other people understand it, which is great and actually super fun. But yes, I am currently looking at positions at DHEC and other state agencies. The benefits are incredible. If you want healthcare, it's great. That's kind of my like number one. I got to be able to send my dogs to a good school. So I'm looking at the state agency route.
Casey, thank you so much for your question. So in the 3 minutes and 30 seconds we have remaining, I'm going to ask our panelists to share some final words of encouragement and closing advice for all of you great students who've listened in on what those juniors and seniors need to be thinking about. So what's your final words of encouragement and advice for our students?
Get out there, try some new stuff. Don't be afraid to, try something that's not necessarily what you're comfortable with, because you're not going to be good at everything at first. Go with the flow, don't stress yourself. I think most of us did that way too early, thinking it's going to go a certain way. And then when it doesn't, it leaves you all kind of frazzled. But be flexible, be ready. It's going to be a great time. You're going to enjoy it, I promise.
Any other closing thoughts from our panelists?
Yes. Sorry, I just had an absolute goldfish brain moment. Don't be afraid of change. If you're unhappy doing what you're doing, change is always an option. It is not the end of the world to switch a program, to switch your emphasis. In fact, it happens way more often than you'd think. So please, if you are unhappy doing what you're doing, or if you get that inkling, trust your gut and at least look at the situation and ask yourself up front, is this what I want to be doing right now? And if the answer is no, that's totally okay. There's tons of avenues for you to go in. You don't have to be miserable in grad school, which is fun.
Agreed. I think, yeah, just to close out, like, it's never too late. I remember feeling so lost as a junior and senior, like, what am I going to do? And everyone is getting jobs or going to med school. A lot of my friends, I'm like, okay, like, what am I doing? But even like using us, I feel like I'm so like such a shameless plug, but I really know a lot of people in my department specifically and the Arnold School. So please do not hesitate. Like, if you want to have a one-on-one conversation, I'm so down. We can talk about all the different avenues of life. I mean, I don't really know what I'm doing, but like, let's talk about things. And yeah, you guys can do this. You're coming out of the Arnold School of Public Health in the, like, at the tail end of a pandemic. Like, you're amazing. You got that degree, you're doing it. So live in that moment and know that you can literally do whatever you want to do. And if you want to get a master's, that's beautiful.
Oh, such great, insightful, positive, encouraging words from all of you. In closing, the journey is the destination, and hopefully the insights from our MPH students will help you figure out how to get to the top of your mountain, and whatever that ends up looking like for you. So give me I know you all have your videos off, but I really appreciate you all for taking time to do this, and thanks for everyone for registering and attending. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch soon. So cheers to all of you, and peace be with you.